Yo, it's Zero, and this is going to be the prelude to What If Naruto Was Raised by Yoriichi. You guys have already hit the like goal on part 6 for me to continue this series into Naruto. So, before I drop part 7, I'd like to drop a prelude of parts 1 through 6 on this series. Hope you guys enjoy.
I get a club play Smash Bros. What's that though? It's a Louis back though. Holy shit, I rolled the split choke, hold the beat. Flip that, then I sold the shit. Got my wrist on spray, now it's cold as shit. Only you boneless, if you got a bone to pick, I tell you go to strip. While I pull up in that stolen whip, while snacking and I'm pulling tricks. The only rabbit here is me, I hop on any beat and treat it like Play-Doh and mold this shit. Bitch, I promise.
Yo, it's Zero, and this is going to be a brand new series on the channel. What if Naruto was raised by Yoriichi, the Sun Breath user from Demon Slayer? For this to become an official series, you guys need to smash the like button, and I'll try to get part 2 out as soon as possible. Join the Discord that's in the description, and without any more wait, subscribe, and let's get into the story. This might surprise you all, but first, we'd actually start the story with the 7-year-old Naruto. In this story, Naruto's chakra control was worse than in the original, but something that changed in this story was that Naruto's personality. He was quiet and very hard to read. He didn't want any attention, nor did he want to be accepted. He just existed to be hated. So, for all the times that Naruto had failed in class, instead of teasing him, most of the other students tried to encourage him to do better. And Naruto actually quite liked this. But as we go to later in the day, during the sparring matches, Naruto would give up before even beginning, and Sasuke yells out at him, "Stand up and fight for once. Just fight me, Naruto." Iruka bends down to Naruto's height. "Just one time. Show me what you're capable of, Naruto. I know you can do it, so why not just show me?" Naruto looked at his teacher, sighing. "Okay, fine, but I really don't want to." Naruto got in a stance, and so did Sasuke. Over against the wall, Sakura and Ino talked. "Man, I feel bad for Naruto. He already doesn't like violence, and he has to go against a top student." Sakura replies, "Yeah, I know. Hopefully Sasuke can end it quick for him." As Sasuke goes in to strike Naruto, he easily dodged. This shocked everyone, even Iruka. Sasuke kept trying to hit Naruto, but the blonde was very evasive. Naruto managed to dodge every attack from Sasuke, but then, when Sasuke went for a grab, Naruto spun around and kicked Sasuke's face, making him spin out of the ring and causing his nose to bleed. Naruto then began to cry, saying he's sorry, but Sasuke only threw sand in his face for being a sore loser. Naruto cried, running away to his apartment, as he then sat in darkness on the floor crying. Every time Naruto had hurt someone else at the academy, he felt great pain in himself. Naruto stayed on the floor and balled up for days, until Lord Third came to drop off money. "Hey Naruto, here's this month's rent and extra expenses." He turned to see Naruto in a ball. "What's wrong this time, Naruto?" Naruto stood up. "I hurt Sasuke." "Was it at the academy?" Hiruzen questioned. Naruto nodded. "It's okay, Naruto. It's part of a ninja's life to fight." Hiruzen put his hand on Naruto's shoulder and smiled, but Naruto flicked it off, looking up at Hiruzen with tears in his eyes. "Then I don't want to be a ninja anymore." Naruto ran out of the door, and it was nearing nighttime, so he dashed through alleyways to avoid sight and found the gate of the leaf. He wondered, could I really leave? No one's here. Without any more thought, Naruto took his opportunity, running through the gate while no one was looking. And he kept running. For some reason, Naruto wouldn't get tired. It's as if his breath was endless. And for a whole night and day, he ran until reaching a medium-sized house near a lake. Naruto, for some reason, stared off at the beautiful house that had sun ornaments on the outside and had stakes around it that had small flames. Naruto thought it was beautiful how they burned and didn't hurt anything. He smiled. For once in his life, Naruto smiled. A genuine smile of happiness at the sight of this home. Then, a family walked out of the home, surprising Naruto. A man was holding a sword with long hair, and behind him was his wife and daughter, who was around Naruto's age. "What do you want from here?" Naruto points at the ornaments. "They're so beautiful." "Oh, I'm sorry to disturb you. I'll be going now." Naruto would bow in respect, but as he turned, he heard the footsteps of people. He doesn't know how he heard it, but he did. And it feels like they were after him. Naruto would quickly turn back to the man who ordered Naruto to come in his direction. He hid the boy in a large pot, and this is when Leaf ninjas would appear as they came to the small house. "Have you seen this boy?" Showing them a picture of Naruto. The man with long hair smiled. "Yes, actually. He was heading northeast. He passed here last night, in fact." They nodded and headed in that direction after thanking the man. "You can come out. They're gone now." Naruto gets out of the pot, dusting himself off. "Thank you for protecting me." The man looks down at Naruto. "Why are you running away from your home?" Naruto looks down, beginning to cry. "They want me to hurt people, but I don't want to. I don't want to hurt anyone anymore." The man looks at the boy, as his wife then turns to him. "Yoriichi, look at him. He's only one more mouth to feed. We can handle another child, can't we?" The man we now know as Yoriichi turns to his wife. "Yuta, this child has parents that probably miss him dear. We can't just take him from them." Naruto then pulls on the robes of Yoriichi, looking up at him. I actually don't have a family. They were killed when I was born, and no one's ever adopted me, because everyone at my home hates me. I don't know why they want me back. They probably just want to use me." And this is where I'll take a slight pause. Even though Naruto wasn't the smartest, from him being quiet and always staying to himself, eventually he would figure out that there was something special about him. But he couldn't figure out what it was. He just knew that the leaf needed him. The family then stares at Naruto. Yoriichi finally says, "Alright, but we'll have to change your name. How about Tayo?" Naruto smiles at this name. The little girl, who is about Naruto's age, grabs his hand. "I'm Suki. Mama, Papa, can we go play?" Yoriichi shakes his head no. "First, I must do something about his hair. They're sure to discover him if they come back. Come here, Tayo." Wait, hold on. Before I keep going, from now on, Naruto in this story will be known as Tayo. And the name means son. He is the son of Yoriichi and Yuta now. Tayo then walks over. "If you're going to live here, we need to change something about your appearance." Yoriichi then looks at his wife, as she would take Tayo to their bathroom, where she would then dye his hair black, like her own. After Tayo comes out, he looks brand new, having black hair and his eyes being a brighter blue due to his happiness. Tayo would then play in the yard with Suki until nighttime. Tayo smiled as he played with this girl who would now be known as his sister. Tayo would live with Yoriichi for months, and then one day, he woke up very early in the morning. He didn't know why he woke up, but it's like something called to him, and he heard a noise outside, so he ran out. The only thing he could see was the sun was rising, and as it did, Yoriichi was using his breath styles, lighting the torches that stood outside of their home. Tayo watched every form in amazement. It was as if Yoriichi didn't need to breathe. The way that he did it was effortless, and it was so graceful. In fact, Naruto even shedded a tear at its beauty. Yoriichi stopped after the last form, turning to Tayo. "Since you are my son, I will pass it down to you. But You will have to train your hardest, and don't think of this as a technique to hurt people. Think of it as something you can use to protect the ones you love. That is how I see it. Taiyo nods, but then he looks down. I'm sorry, but I can't use chakra that good. Yoriichi comes closer to his son. Taiyo, these forms do not require chakra. They require the use of extreme breathing. Yoriichi then explains how he created the breath of the sun and how every other breath was derived from his own. Then he would also tell Taiyo that he has an uncle somewhere else in the world, and he will eventually meet him. Taiyo would begin his training on this day. At the beginning of his training, he focused on breathing. He has to go through the full day only using 25 breaths, each of them going on for as long as possible. For some reason, this kind of came natural to him, like he was supposed to do it. He thought about it. Was this the thing that made me so special? Was I fated to do this? He just didn't know. Taiyo trained hard with the drive to protect his family. And one day before training, Yoriichi left to go get supplies for the family. Taiyo, protect your mother and sister till I arrive. He nodded, going to grab his wooden sword that his father had made for him, and he sat in front of the house. As the sun set, Taiyo stayed in that position, but to his surprise, Yoriichi wasn't back yet, and a group of bandits then appeared. Taiyo stood up in front of his house, telling his sister to go back inside with his mother. As the men walked up, Taiyo bowed. What can I do for you all today? One of them grabbed him by his shirt. We're not here to talk. The men began to laugh, but the air around Taiyo became cold as he then gripped the blade and the man's hands, causing the skinny man to release him. Taiyo then put both his hands on the wooden blade, beginning to breathe in and out. Mother, keep Suki inside and cover her eyes. Yuta did as her eldest son had told her to. The next actions taken by an 8-year-old could barely be seen. Even with a wooden blade, his strikes were deadly, managing to even cut through the skin of some of the men. And he knocked them all out. Taiyo then tied them up, and minutes later, his father would arrive. As then, he bowed to his father. Welcome back home. Yoriichi put down the large basket that he was carrying on his back, and he walked to the unconscious men that were tied to trees. He put his fingers on his neck to check their pulse, and he saw that all of them were alive. He smiled back at his son. Good job, Taiyo. The boy smiled, hugging his father, beginning to cry. I was so scared, father. I didn't want to hurt them, but I had to protect our family, just like you said. He would comfort his son, as his wife and daughter would then run out, hugging them as well. Suki hugs her brother tight and wipes his tears. You were so cool. You were all like, whoosh, kick, splash, all that. You're so cool, big brother. Taiyo smiled as his hair was rubbed by his mother. My, you're becoming more and more like your father every day, aren't you, Taiyo? Even your hair is grown out. How about we fix that a little? She would then put Taiyo's hair in a small ponytail that resembled his father's. Taiyo smiled. What will we do with them, father? My son, we must teach them a lesson so that they are never to come here again. Taiyo nodded, and when the bandits woke up, Taiyo and Yoriichi stood over them. Yoriichi put them all in a genjutsu where they saw themselves die from his blade in the most gruesome way. After this, they ran away, leaving money for the family so that they would not come find them. Yoriichi turned to Taiyo. How many breaths did it take you to knock them all out? Taiyo begins to rub the back of his head nervously. About 18. This is when Yoriichi tapped his head. You need more training, but for now, go to rest. Good work, my son. Taiyo runs in the house, but Yoriichi then says to himself, he's progressing very fast. It's crazy how strong he could become in only 8 months. Taiyo was born to be a Hashira, as if he was his own. Now we can hop back into the story. Taiyo would keep his breathing training going for another 3 months until one day, while he was meditating underwater, a man appeared underwater with him. Taiyo stared off at the man who resembled his father. Taiyo, however, did not stop his training, and when he saw the sun begin to set from under the water, he swam to the top, taking a breath. Taiyo shook his black hair around and put it up in a ponytail. The strange man followed behind Taiyo, coming out of the water. The man then noticed his sun earrings. "So, you are my family. That's strange. I don't remember my brother having 2 kids." Taiyo looked up at the man, whose earrings were moons instead of suns. "You're my uncle, aren't you?" The man smirked while standing with grace. "Yes, my name is Kokushibo. And you?" "My name is Taiyo." "I see. So my brother gave you the name of Sun. How interesting." Taiyo then begins to walk away, but he noticed the man wasn't following him, so he turns back to his uncle. "Aren't you coming too?" And this is when Kokushibo falls over from exhaustion. And in a flash, Taiyo speeds up to catch him. And when night falls, the torches are lit by Yoriichi as he sits and waits for his son to return in front of his house. His training should have been done by now. I wonder what is taking him so long. This is when he sees Taiyo carrying his elder brother. Yoriichi runs forward, taking his brother into his home. Taiyo would smile at his younger sister, who was also outside. "He's pretty heavy." His sister would laugh, and she heads inside to take care of him as well. Taiyo would sit on the outside of the house, guarding his family while they took care of his uncle. As he sits there, he watches the torches burn gracefully. As he then stands up, he walks towards them as if something or the torches were calling him. They were asking him to perform all 13 forms, and his feet then began to move on their own as he goes through every sun-breathing form, 1 through 13. And they were done gracefully with Taiyo's wooden sword, except no flames were produced. He only knows the basics for now, and when he finished, he bowed to the flames in respect as he hears clapping. His whole family stood behind him in amazement. Yoriichi walked to his son. "How many breaths did it take you to do?" The black-haired boy looked up at his father. "Only 2. Yoriichi smiles while rubbing his hair. "You're progressing faster and faster each day." Taiyo smiles. "Father, would it be okay if I became a samurai like you?" Yoriichi hugged his son. "You can choose whatever path you want to go down, but for that to happen, you'll have to pass the final selection test." Taiyo will be confused, and this is when the two of them hear a voice from behind. "So, younger brother, you haven't told him anything yet, have you?" Kokushibo smiled at Taiyo. "Well, first you'll need a trial sword to actually take the test, so here," he says while tossing him a blade that he would catch. "Don't worry, if it breaks, you'll be fine." "At least I think so, unless that man appears here." Taiyo nods, looking back up at his father. "You have about 1 more month before you can actually join the samurais, because that is when the test will be held. But even at your age, I think you'd be an amazing swordsman, my son, and that is because you care about people as much as I do." Taiyo's eyes then light up with excitement as he runs in the house to tell his mother and sister that he will become a strong samurai. For the next month, Taiyo undergoes even harder training than before. He had to be blindfolded on certain parts and rely on all his other senses. When him and his father occasionally sparred, his uncle would hit him with surprise attacks to throw him off his game. Taiyo's breathing training also had increased. Then, at night, he had to practice all 13 forms of the sun, and his uncle would occasionally give him a separate teaching. But He did them over and over until he did each one perfectly. After the month's time is up, Taiyo would smile as he heads north to the Samurai Foundation. But as he turns around to hug his sister Suki, he says, "I'll be back, I promise. I'm gonna miss you, big brother." Taiyo would wipe her tears. "Then I'll be back faster so you don't have to miss me. Father, uncle, thank you for everything." Taiyo would then hug his mother as she kisses him on his head, and then he leaves their home. Taiyo would travel for days until reaching a beautiful land that will have bright flowers everywhere. As he then keeps walking, he accidentally bumps into a boy and his sister while looking at the amazing flowers. "Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't looking where I was going." Taiyo then bows his head, but the boy picks it up and then looks at him. "Hi, my name is Tanjiro, and this is my little sister, Nezuko. We came to become samurai. Did you?" Taiyo smiles. "I did indeed. I also have a younger sister, and I came here to get stronger so that I can protect her." Tanjiro smiles. "From this day forth then, we'll be friends, Taiyo, and we'll protect our sisters." Nezuko then hits Tanjiro on his head saying, "I'll protect you too." They all smile and laugh, and this is when a man in all white appears, and everyone would bow. "Thank you all for coming to our event held once a year. I'll expect you all to do your best heading forth into the forest of beasts in danger. There should be a mountain, and that is your end goal. Once you reach the top, you'll become samurai. Good luck to all of you. I hope to see you there." Everyone then begins to panic, scattering and trampling each other as they try to get a head start. In the confusion, Tanjiro had lost sight of his sister, but he kept her scent in his mind. Eventually, after most people were gone, Tanjiro saw a bee up and stepped on Taiyo, who was hovering over Nezuko, protecting her. Taiyo got up and Tanjiro thanked him. And then he said, "You can thank me by meeting me at the top of the mountain, my friend." Tanjiro nodded, and in a flash, with one step, Taiyo was gone. Through the forest, he ran, not making a single noise. From behind Taiyo, he saw a giant bear, who was gaining speed on him. The bear looked sort of demonic, and as the bear then slashed his claws at him from a behind angle, Taiyo began to breathe as he popped his sword out, focusing. Breath of the sun, fifth form, setting sun. As Taiyo then did a backflip, cutting the demonic creature wide open. It falls to the ground, and it will be dead. Taiyo then prays over the creature, and out of nowhere, a slash came from a blade that was very different. It was a shredded blade, but then another came. And this is when Taiyo saw an older kid who was wearing a strange boar mask. And he had no shirt on. "Oh, it's just another participant. Well, good luck," he said as he then ran past him. And the kid in the boar mask would wonder what that was. He would think, "When I did my first attack, I thought he killed me. But I'm still alive. That was strange." It's like he saw his own death from the slightest movement of that boy. Taiyo would then be going through the trials with ease, demonstrating his power in this forest. And he climbed the mountain, going higher and higher while killing beasts. And on the top, he saw people that attacked him on his way there. And even though he didn't want to, he killed them as well. Taiyo noticed he was the first to arrive on the top of the mountain. So what he did was sit and wait with his uncle's blade in his lap. This is when the Grand Master came up to him. "I expect no less from the son of Yoriichi, the greatest Hashira to ever live." Taiyo sits there and looks up. "He never told me that." "Really?" Well, he wasn't a man to brag about his skills. He only honed them further. The Grand Master bows, walking away. Taiyo had only arrived in one day and several hours, so he waited night and day, only using tiniest breath to survive, and eventually, After a week, everyone else had arrived, including Tanjiro and Nezuko, and the kid who wore the boar hat. Tanjiro, when arriving, ran up to Taiyo, who was still sitting down. "Hey Taiyo, when did you arrive, my friend?" In one day. Tanjiro's facial expression became one of shock at the sheer power of a kid who was much younger than him. The Grand Master would then appear. "Well, it seems that everyone was here. You are the ones who survived and passed, and I have no doubt you will all help to change the world. Return to your homes, and I'll have swords sent your way. Thank you all for participating. Oh, and here's a special gift. These birds will tell you when each of your missions will take part, as this is when crows fly to all of them. But Taiyo wouldn't get a bird. From out of nowhere, a hawk would land on his shoulder. Oh, how pretty," he says while looking at the hawk, as everyone then looks at him. Everyone begins to talk and whisper, as someone would then shout, "Hey kid, how old are you?" Because this was the question on everyone's minds. And Taiyo, still not being the smartest person, his heart would drop, as he then begins counting on his fingers, not being very good at math. As he then holds up 9 fingers, I think 8. Everyone would laugh, but then stare at him in shock. Tanjiro, who was sitting next to him, smiles. This number means 8, as he corrects his fingers. "And that's amazing. You're so young but so strong." From behind Taiyo was the Grand Master. "Do you mind showing off your breath styles to give an impression off on everyone here for me? It'll push them to become stronger." Taiyo nods and then steps into some free space, as he then performs all 13 forms perfectly. Everyone would clap, and then the kid from the forest who had worn the boar mask ran over to him. And then he slashed down at him, but the blades were caught, and only a slight bit of blood was drawn from Taiyo's hand, as he then said, "I'm sorry, I don't want to fight anymore." Taiyo gripped the sword, flipping the man over himself. Taiyo then began to pick up his things, as him and Tanjiro and Nezuko would walk, as they would eventually reach a river that would separate their paths. Taiyo then returns home and is greeted by his family. He returns the sword to his uncle. As they would sit down for dinner, his sister says, "I thought you got a bird." But this is when a hawk flies in, sitting in the window. And then they all smile. They would wait for days, and then a man with a red mask would appear. Is this the home of the new samurai, Taiyo? Yoriichi nods, letting the man in his home. And eventually, Taiyo would come back from playing with his sister. As he then sees the man, he would bow, sitting with them. "Here's your sword. I worked night and day on it. Hearing how young you were, I had to make it a little bit shorter to fit your size. But don't worry, as you grow older, I'll eventually get you a new one. So please don't destroy this one." He hands Taiyo the sword, and as he pulls it out, he then stops, heading outside. Then he would pull out the blade as it becomes dark blue with a crimson red layer. Taiyo smiles as he says, "Breath of the Sun, 3rd form, bone-burning sun," as he spins around, creating larger flames that disappeared into the air. Taiyo would bow to the man as he left, and after this, he would rest for days. Actually, not even that. He would rest for weeks until his hawk finally spoke to him. "Taiyo, the Grand Master requests that you travel to the Land of Stone to help out Tanjiro and Nezuko, who face a great evil." Taiyo gripped his blade, saying, "I'll be back," as they all smile as he ran out the door with no hesitation. The hawk guides him day and night until he finally reaches the place, and as Tanjiro was about to be struck down by the man, the attack was deflected by Taiyo, who said, "Breath of the Sun, 6th form, soaring flame haze." Again now, with him saving the life of Tanjiro. Taiyo would quickly notice after slashing at the man that there was no blood on his blade. "So it seems we are fighting a machine here. Nezuko, grab your brother and any others who were hurt and quickly retreat. I'll do this on my own." Nezuko would do as she's told. taking the civilians and Tanjiro away with the help of many other low-ranked samurai. Back at the fight with the puppeteer, who would show himself. Well, it seems you are stronger than the rest, but I'll still win this. Taiyo gets in a different stance and then begins to breathe. Breath of the Sun, Dance of the Fire God. As many more puppets will fly towards Taiyo, he begins to spin around them, flames forming around his blade as he cut them and got closer to his opponent. You'll never beat me, kid. Let me show you something you don't know. Earth style, mud wall jutsu. Taiyo would easily cut through the mud wall. Breath of the Sun, 8th form. Sunflower lance, as Taiyo then pokes his sword through the throat of his opponent. But still no blood came out. Taiyo then closed his eyes as he begins to dive deep into his own subconscious. Speaking to himself, he would say, Father said that often sometimes your own eyes can be your worst enemy, so that is why I trained you to rely on your other senses. Taiyo kept his eyes closed, and then from underneath him, the real body appeared. Taiyo jumped into the sky, now blocking the sun, with a black silhouette of his body is all that could be seen. Breath of the Sun, 10th form. Sun Chariot, as Taiyo then came crashing down in a wheel of flames, splitting the man in half. As Taiyo stood, he finally saw the blood on his sword and prayed over his enemy, as he then swung his blade to clean it, and then he went to go help the others who were injured. Back at the forest with Tanjiro and Nezuko, who would speak to each other. I hope Taiyo is doing okay. Nezuko responds, of course he is. He's strong. We don't need to worry about him right now. We need to focus on your injuries and the injuries of others. Tanjiro then tries to sit up. Maybe we should go help him. But then he feels a hand on his shoulder. It was Taiyo. You can rest easy, my friend. What is our casualty count? Tanjiro looks down, feeling that it is his fault that this happened. 4 were killed while the rest of us were injured. If only I was stronger, I could have... Taiyo then puts his finger on his lips. Thank you all for your hard work and dedication. Taiyo would put down his blade and begin to help those who were injured, and then his hawk would fly overhead as it speaks. Taiyo, Nezuko, and Tanjiro, please head to the land of wind and rescue 30 civilians that were captured in a mansion. There will be another samurai there waiting for you all. Taiyo's eyes quickly widen. That's a lot of people. Tanjiro, how are your injuries? Can you run? Tanjiro tries to stand up, but quickly falls back down. This is when Taiyo walks over, placing a hand on Tanjiro's chest. What are you doing? Shh, Taiyo would say, as he then speaks. Oh, great sun, lend me your strength and heal the injuries of the fallen. Sun breath, hidden technique, sun's grace. As Taiyo then begins to glow, and everyone in the area will be healed by flames that came from around his body. Come on, my friends, we have people to save. They run off, and the samurai who survived bow in respect and praise Taiyo. As they run, Taiyo speaks a message to his hawk and hands the hawk a small pouch with flowers in it, as it then flies off. Days go by, and at the home of Taiyo, the hawk would fly in. Yoriichi takes the pouch off its body and then reads the note. I'm sorry I cannot be home. Right now, I am on my way to help more people in need. I love you all. These 2 bright flowers are for my lovely mother and little sister. Kokushibu puts his arm around his younger brother. Well, Yoriichi, he's just like us, huh? I bet he's the strongest in his generation. Yoriichi smiles at his brother. Hopefully, he can become a Hashira. His brother would respond with, I have no doubt in my mind he will. We were the ones who trained him after all, and we're the strongest. Yuta and Suki would both smile while putting the flowers in their hair, and it would take the 3 of them a week and a half of travel. This was because the difference in speed between the siblings and Taiyo. Before they arrived, Tanjiro then asked, Tayo, how did you heal everyone? I borrowed power from the sun, and I spread its life energy to those around me. It's an amazing ability, but it has such a fatal flaw. It can only be used at high noon, when the sun is at its strongest. Tanjiro nods. Hey, Tanjiro, what breathing style do you use? I never asked. Oh, I use water, while my sister uses wind. Tayo nods. That's amazing. Tanjiro then yells out, No, Tayo, you're amazing. You're only 8, and you're the strongest person I've ever seen fight. Well, except for Sensei Giyu. Tayo smiles. I have no idea who that is. And then he says, We have arrived. They all stand on a hill, looking over the mansion in the land of wind. Tayo then quickly scouts the area. Wait, is that the person that we're supposed to be helping? Tayo then quickly disappears, reappearing holding a boy with yellow hair. Hey, are you okay? Why are you crying? The kid then begins to freak out and panic. Tanjiro will try to calm him down, but when he sees Nezuko, he becomes silent, and then he yells again. Will you marry me? Nezuko smiles, laughing for a bit, and then tells him to be quiet so no one can hear them. And he would listen. After they learn his name is Zenitsu, Tayo begins to devise a plan. Alright, well, I'd like all of you to stay here for an hour while I scout the building out, inside and out. Zenitsu looks puzzled. There's no way you're that fast. Tayo smiles, holding his blade up to the moonlight as the crimson red parts fully become enveloped in dark blue. This made them all curious about what he was about to do. Was there some other technique that he knew? Tanjiro himself was very curious, and the three of them watch as he disappears right after. Tayo would then run through the whole mansion fast as possible while memorizing each room, and he figured out where the hostages were being kept. After about an hour, he returned to them with maps of the whole mansion. He had also stole paper while inside and wrote this down. Tanjiro and Nezuko smiled at this, but Zenitsu freaked out even more. How are you that fast? Are you even human? And you're just a child. Tayo smiles. You have to be more quiet. And then he said, You're a lightning samurai, aren't you? I can tell by your robes. And your blade. Your blade seems strange. It calls to speed more than anything else. Zenitsu would get quiet. Alright, here's the plan. Nezuko, go with Zenitsu. And Tanjiro, you're with me. Me and Tanjiro will knock out all the surrounding guards while you two infiltrate from the rooftop. You'll move on our signal. Please pay attention. Everyone nods, and then Tanjiro and Tayo rush off. Stay close to me, Tanjiro. Alright, I will. Then they would pass a guard, and Tayo kicks his neck. That's one. Let's tie him up to that tree. After this, they go through about 8 more guards, and then Tayo looks at Tanjiro. Throw me up really high. I'm pretty light, so this should be easy for you. Without hesitation, Tanjiro lets Tayo step on his hand and lifts him up into the air. Tayo then would begin to say, Breath of the Moon, 7th form, Mirror of Misfortune. Tayo swings his blade, creating crescent moons in the sky, and this would alert Zenitsu and Nezuko as they now make their move inside the mansion from the rooftop. When they walk in, they see a ninja already waiting for them, and then they're surrounded. Zenitsu gets scared and instantly passes out, thinking that he was already gonna die. And from behind Nezuko as she was protecting him, lightning sparks fly around the room, as in a flash, all the men were beheaded. In another part of the house, Tanjiro entered with Tayo. Hey Tanjiro, go help those two. I'll go for the rescue. Tanjiro nodded and Tayo ran down towards the basement door, but it was locked. He heard screaming, so he wasted no time. Breath of the Moon, 3rd form, Lonesome Moon, as Tayo then begins to strike the door over and over again until it breaks. And then he stands over a black space as kids, women, and men run out to him. By this time, the other three had finished everyone else, and they meet up. Taiyo then says, "Alright, everyone listen closely. Follow these three, and they will guide you outside." But this is when a loud explosion is heard, and samurai jump through the glass rooftop, breaking it and causing glass to fall. But Taiyo was able to protect them by shielding everyone with his body. Tanjiro, "Help everyone escape. I'll cover your movements." Tanjiro nodded but still had some doubt, as he then ran through a window. One of the samurai began to come close to him, but as he was about to slice his face open, Taiyo blocked the attack and kicked him away. Taiyo then jumped, throwing a bunch of small knives, causing the place to become dark as he hit all the lights in the room. Breath of the Moon, second form, Pearl Flowers Moon Gazing. Taiyo performs several crescent-shaped slashes that defend him from incoming attacks, sending a barrage of more crescent blades that cut through his opponents. He then flips onto the ceiling of the room, and the room will become hotter as he then begins to glow, and the crimson part of his blade shines through the darkness. Breath of the Sun, ninth form, Dragon Sun Halo Dance. Taiyo would unleash continuous, fast, and powerful sword attacks that seemingly take the form of a sun dragon, and it kills all the enemies that have remained. Another explosion is seen from far away that would destroy the house. Tanjiro then yells out, "Taiyo, no!" Tanjiro runs back, but as he gets closer, he sees Taiyo standing there in front of the exploding building, as his clothes were torn up and scorched. Taiyo then had blood all over him, and he begins to fall from exhaustion. But this is when he was caught by Tanjiro, who'd carried him back to the others. Everyone cheered Taiyo on, but his hawk would fly overhead once again. Nezuko gets scared, thinking that it was another mission, and when she told Zenitsu this, he began to freak out. But then everyone heard the hawk say, "Will Taiyo, Nezuko, Zenitsu, and Tanjiro report to the base of our organization." We begin now after the defeat of those samurais and the escape of the exploding house. Taiyo's hawk tells them all where to go, and after resting a couple days, they head off to the base of their samurai organization to meet with the Grand Master. Once arriving and pushing open the gate doors, they would notice the white ground. Taiyo enjoyed the color, but Zenitsu would freak out. "Why is everyone staring at us?" Nezuko would then touch his shoulder. "They're not really staring at us. They're mostly paying attention to him," pointing at Taiyo, who led the group, walking with not only divinity, but also grace. Taiyo walks around some more and finds some people. They were sitting down facing a building. Taiyo decided to sit behind them, and this will be when Tanjiro yelled out, "Hey, Sensei Giyu!" The black-haired teenager turned around, putting a finger to his lip and shushing his student. Tanjiro put his head down as Nezuko would rub his back to make him feel better. The Grand Master appeared before them and smiled. "My children who rank above many, the Hashira, and I see you four have made it as well. I thank you all for lending the people your strength in your last mission." The older kid with black hair and a snake then said, "Why have you summoned us all at one time, Grandmaster?" The man smiled. "Obane, I appreciate you getting right to the point. There were actually two reasons I called all of you here. The age of samurai versus samurai is now upon us. In their last mission, Taiyo and his group were the first to go against these evil samurai, but they prevailed with no casualties. All the Hashira then turned back to them. They would look around as they would see Taiyo's dark blue and crimson blade." This is when the Grandmaster would also say, "I'd like all the Hashira to begin to take their missions more seriously than ever, because we never know when they might appear. Alright, Now my second reason. Tayo, would you please step up and introduce yourself fully? Tayo stands up, walking in front of everyone and facing them. He bows while also saying, "My name is Tayo Sugikuni, son of Yoriichi Sugikuni, the breath of Sun User, nephew of Kokushibo Sugikuni, the breath of Moon User. They both trained me in the art of the sword to help people around the world." The Grandmaster gets down, putting his hand on Tayo's shoulder. "Tayo, they seem to be confused. Can you show them what you mean by both of them training you?" Tayo nods, and the Grandmaster would step back. Tayo begins to focus as he breathes. Breath of the Sun, 9th form. Solo Halo Dragon Dance. As he swings his sword, a flame of a dragon appears as he swings with each strike. Tayo then flips into the air. Breath of the Moon, 5th form. Moon Spirit, Calamitous Eddy. Tayo swings his blade, making multiple curved slashes layered over one another, creating a rising vortex of his sword slashes and crescent moon blades. The Hashira all gasp at his strength and how he uses total concentration without even thinking. Tayo then looks at them, as they would then begin to clap, and the Grandmaster would say, "Tayo, I know you haven't been with us very long, but I would like you to become a Hashira." Everyone then gets quiet, as Tayo would accept. "Good. From this day forth, you will be known as Tayo, the Sun and Moon Pillar. Please take this letter back home to your family." Tayo would bow and then takes the letter, running off with it, as his hawk would then follow him. Once he is gone, the Grandmaster would explain how he wants Tanjiro, Nezuko, and Zenitsu to learn total concentration here at the organization. Back with Tayo, without having people to slow him down and only having a small amount of people to help on the way, he made it home in 5 days. Tayo arrived as the sun would begin to come up, and as he gets closer to his home, he sees his father performing the dance like he always does in front of their house. He watched with so much amazement, just as he had when he was little. Once he was finished, he walked up to his father. "How have you been, my son?" Tayo smiles. "I've been doing great. Tayo would turn around as he begins to get red and nervous from his father's overwhelming presence, and he knows how much this means to his father. "Can I just tell everyone at dinner instead?" His father smiled. "You never were good at expressing yourself. Come on, your mother just cooked a fine meal." They would all sit down, and Tayo would notice that his uncle isn't there anymore. They tell him that his uncle went to go make a family of his own, and Yoriichi would tell him it's about time he did that. Tayo shrugs this off as he pulls out a piece of paper. "Father, could you read this out loud?" His father opened the scroll, reading it. "Dear Yoriichi, my old friend, I hope you have been doing very well, and to cut to the chase, your son Tayo has been promoted to the rank known as Hashira, and he will now be known as Tayo, the Sun and Moon Pillar." His father would look up at him with tears beginning to swell in his eyes. "You'll literally only be 9 in a couple days, and you've already become a Hashira." Yoriichi brings his son in close for a hug, as Yuta and Suki would join him as well. That night, Tayo slept great, and in the morning, he performed the dance with his father, and then he stayed home to protect the family, as Yoriichi went into town to gather more supplies. Tayo would play with his sister Yuta, as he hasn't in so many months. To be frank, he was quite jealous of the relationship that Tanjiro and Nezuko had, but he'd never want his sister to become a samurai and put her life on the line. He thought that it was his job and his job alone for the family. As they began to keep playing, their mother called Yuta in for a snack, and as they ate fruit, Tayo would say, "Have you and father ever thought about getting a bigger house or moving to a safer location?" Yuta would pause before eating. "Your father did it one time. He did talk to me about moving closer towards the Grand Master and the base of the samurai, but that was in the past." Tayo nods as she then says, Why do you ask? Mother, there are evil samurai in the world now, and they turned on the people and used their powers destructively. They pause as they hear a voice outside. Taiyo is the first to run out holding his sword, but he is greeted by men in masks and armor that was foreign. Now, I'll actually explain what's been going on in the Leaf. Since Naruto had run away, that was their biggest asset. And if word had got out that they didn't have the Nine Tails anymore, the Leaf could be under attack, and they needed as much strength as they can. So, what they did was spread the Uchiha clan around every part of the Leaf so that they could not cope with each other and form a coup d'etat. This was the reason that many of the Uchiha members were still alive, including Itachi and Shisui. Hello there. I'd like to ask if you've seen this man. And this is when the small boy held up a picture of Yoriichi. Taiyo went to grip his sword but remained calm. No, I haven't. Why do you ask? The smaller black-haired boy jumps forward. You're lying. Taiyo, on instinct, moved. Breath of the sun, fifth form, setting sun, doing a backflip while cutting his mask off, revealing who we knew as Itachi Uchiha. Anbu then surround him. Suki yells out, "Leave my brother alone." Some Anbu then run for the house. No you don't. Breath of the sun, Parhelion Rainbow. Taiyo then perform high speeds and twist with strikes, thus creating after image used mostly to evade attacks from Itachi and Kakashi. The after image worked most effectively on enemies with good vision, such as these two who had possessed the Sharingan. Taiyo cut through 5 Anbu standing in front of his house. I will not let you harm my family. Itachi, for a split second, sees himself in Taiyo, but he quickly shakes this off as Kakashi and him rush forward, and Kakashi would begin to use a lightning blade, attempting to pierce the chest of the little girl. But Taiyo grips his sword tight. Breath of the moon, first form, dark moon. Taiyo cuts Kakashi's chest, causing him to stop the attack. And this would be when from the tree, Yoriichi jumped down with a big basket. He looks at his son, who was covered in blood that did not belong to him. And Yoriichi would notice that his son was covered in a face that he wasn't used to seeing. His expression was that of anger. Pure hate for the people who just tried to attack his home. Yoriichi then graces the head of Taiyo. Calm down and think. Follow my lead and we will prevail. Taiyo smiled. Of course, father, and this would calm him down. Kakashi jumped back to Itachi. We need to retreat. Itachi would tell him no, but this is when the two felt an overwhelming strength of father and son. As the two walked closer to them, hands on their blades, they both then began to get lower in perfect sync with one another. Yoriichi spoke. This is your last chance. Why are you here? Kakashi quickly picks up the paper and holds it. To capture this man, but we know now that it isn't you. Yoriichi looked closer, and it was his elder brother. The father and son watch as the ninja drop all their weapons and mask. Walking forward, Kakashi would then say, "You mind if we have a little chat?" It wasn't who they were truly after. We begin part 5 now, after the conversation the ninja had with the family of samurai. Both ninja bow in respect and apologize for attacking them. Taiyo would look at Itachi. His eyes pierced Itachi's heart and soul. And then his gaze went to Kakashi. Taiyo got up, grabbing the hand that Kakashi almost killed his sister with. How many people have you killed with this hand? Kakashi would then get flashbacks to Rin and many other ninjas that had families who he had killed. And then he began to cry. This is when Taiyo looked down on Kakashi as he sat. And with a calm voice, he would say, "You don't deserve to cry." Yoriichi would try to stop his son, but Yuta would touch his shoulder. "Never come here again. Use your amazing talents to help people rather than to kill them. Taiyo would then turn to that of Itachi. As for you, you need to stop fighting battles that you cannot win. It is okay to retreat. Itachi then gripped the kunai under the table. What are you? And this is when he felt the sword of Taiyo pressed against his throat. In an instant, the boy had moved that fast. See what I mean? And I will never forgive you for putting my family's life in danger. So leave. The two ninja get up and they would leave. Yoriichi would then say, so it seems my elder brother was lying about starting a family. He's actually turned to the wrong side. I never thought that would actually happen. Taiyo looks down in disappointment. Father, I alone will slay him. Yoriichi was surprised by how quickly his son had adapted to this situation, but he would thank his son. After this, the family gathers their things and actually moves. Yoriichi doesn't want his brother Kokushibo to attack his home, especially when it's only his wife and daughter. The Leaf Ninja will report to Lord Third about the mistake that they had made, and they begin their hunt for Kokushibo. Far away though, on top of a strange snowy mountain, Kokushibo and many others were gathered bowing to a man on a throne. Well then, looks like as time goes on, we can't move. So, I think it'd be rude not to give them a fighting chance. The man turns to one of his samurai. Upper Moon 11 Rui, go cause havoc for me with your family. In an instant, he left, heading to a forest. Back with Taiyo's family, they would then arrive at the base of their organization. Many will bow in respect to Yoriichi and Taiyo. Yuta was sleeping on his back. As he then walked, he still enjoyed the white flowers that were on the ground. Eventually, they would reach a home that was once Yoriichi's. And as they settled their things to unpack, Yuta looked at her son. Go find your friends. We'll finish up here. Taiyo hugged his mom, and then he headed off. He dashed across the giant area trying to find Tanjiro, but what he heard was the voice of Zenitsu screaming. Once he slid open the door, Tanjiro and Nezuko ran at him, hugging him. Hey guys, I missed you too. How's the training coming? Both of them smile while telling them that they can use total concentration up to 2 minutes now. Taiyo smiled. I'm glad you're safe, but starting today, I will oversee everyone's training. They all will be in shock, and the next day, Taiyo does the sun dance, and many would watch. This is when they see Yoriichi, who was watching as well. Tanjiro watches it so close because he was truly amazed. He's amazing, isn't he? Tanjiro looks up to see Yoriichi. Yes, he's so strong and graceful. He never stops to amaze me in battle, even at my darkest moments. Yoriichi smiles, but he notices Tanjiro has a set of sun earrings as well. So, you must be related to my old friend. Do you know a man named Tanjiro? Tanjiro? And Nezuko's eyes widen, as they both would say, that's our father. Yoriichi smiles. Out of many people I know, I would put your father at third for total concentration. Taiyo would finish the dance as he sees his father talking to his friends. He ran over and bowed to his father, who tapped his head. You still need more work, but you are getting better. Taiyo smiled. Of course, father. Alright, all the samurai here, grab your swords and follow me. Taiyo takes them all to a forest that was very dark, even during the day. Alright, now the goal for this training is for you to use all your other senses to block my attacks and land attacks on me. Once you complete this training, you can move on to training with my father. Everyone shouts in excitement at the chance to train with two Hashira. Tanjiro steps up first, and when he does, Taiyo drops his weapon. As soon as Tanjiro's guard would be lowered because of this, he was kicked in his stomach. Taiyo then turns back to them. If you guys actually manage to land hits on me, I'll just let you pass. Don't worry, I'll be using this wooden sword against your blades, for safety reasons. This is when everyone rushes at Taiyo, but he smirks as Tanjiro would yell out no. as he and Nezuko watch as Taiyo uses the 11th form to create what seemed like clones of himself because of how fast he was moving, and he knocks all 17 other participants down. Zenitsu stood shaking his head as Taiyo would walk towards him. Once they were super close, Taiyo smiled, "Boo," and then Zenitsu passed out from shock. Taiyo then turned back to everyone. Now, everyone watched Zenitsu as he enters his true form that is very useful in battle. From behind Taiyo was a giant burst of lightning. Alright, everyone please pay close attention to this fight. Breath of the Sun, second form, Azure Heaven. Taiyo slices in a 360 direction, but Zenitsu blocked and flipped over him, going for another slash. But the blade was grabbed by Taiyo, whose hand was covered in flames. Zenitsu calmed down, and he looked up at Taiyo as he fell. Breath of the Sun, secret technique, Hands of Flames. Taiyo dropped the blade, and everyone there watched in amazement. Everyone here has something that makes them special. My job is to help you harness that before moving on. I'd say this training takes about a month for everyone to pass, and during this time, Tanjiro and Nezuko would figure out something. They realized that their father knew a variation of the Breath of the Sun, and doing this, they created their own breath styles by combining what they already knew. Nezuko created Scorch Breathing, a style of fire and wind, combining to create strong air as well as flames. Tanjiro created his own breath of steam. This style uses hot air to deal damage over time for longer fights. This would wear down his opponent. After this, they begin the training with Yoriichi. Alright, all of you, follow me. He takes them to a big river, and from out of the river pops Taiyo and Suki, who are playing around. "Oh, hey father, you must be starting today." He nods, turning back to many of the samurai. "My son and daughter may be young, but their breathing is very great. This training will be for all of you to use total concentration while holding your breath under the water against the very strong flowing tides." Everyone will be surprised while looking at the kids in the river who seem to be having fun while doing so. Tanjiro yelled out, "Mr. Yoriichi, how young was Taiyo when he first started his training? And how long could he do it?" Yoriichi then thinks, "Well, he's only 9 now, so I'd say about 6.5. Maybe a little bit older, but he could do so for about 10 minutes before telling me the river was too cold." Everyone would now begin their training, being even more motivated. The goal for everyone was 5 minutes. This training was harder than anything the samurai had ever done before, and this took them 2 additional more months to fully complete. And then all of them weren't even done. Only our main protagonist had completed their training. One day while relaxing with his mother and sister picking flowers, Taiyo's hawk flew down. Taiyo would then pet his bird. "Oh, I've missed you, my friend. Have you been safe?" The bird would nod as it then said, "Taiyo, go to the haunted forest to assist samurai who will need more strength. There is a very strong opponent there. Bring Tanjiro and Nezuko as well, and Zenitsu." Taiyo hugged his mother and sister tight. Yuta smiles at her son. "Go, they need you." Right. Taiyo runs and grabs his friends, as they would then leave the organization, heading out into the world once again. And this is where this part will end. I'm sorry this one is short, but trust me, once I put out part 6, it'll make up for the short time. And I'm pretty sure you guys will enjoy that part the most out of anything I put. Thank you all once again for the support on the series, and this is Zero, and I'm signing out. Taiyo and his friends heading to a haunted forest to help those in need. After a week of travel, they would arrive. Zenitsu would yell out, No, I don't want to go in. That looks scary and dangerous." Taiyo smiles. "I'm going in to go save everyone." He puts his hand on the hilt of his blade and dashed off. Tanjiro and Nezuko run trying to keep up. Instinctively, Zenitsu didn't want to be alone, so he followed them as well. Taiyo, from a distance, would see many samurai hung up by strange webs and threads. Breath of the Sun, 9th form, Solo Halo Dragon Dance. As his blade is pulled, flames that create a dragon swarm around his movements as he cuts everyone down from the webs. And this is when a giant man, looking like a cyclops, appears before Taiyo. Taiyo, however, would not back down, stepping as close as possible as they would make eye contact. The other three would then arrive, and Zenitsu screams out while pointing, "Taiyo, what is that thing?" In an instant, the large beast vanished, trying to attack the injured, but his arms will be cut off. "I will save everyone. That is my job as a Hashira. Don't worry, I am here." The beast kicks Taiyo into a tree. As he goes flying, he would then change his movements mid-air to land his feet on the tree and push off back to his opponent. Breath of the Sun, 2nd form, Azure Slash. Nezuko looks at Tanjiro and Zenitsu. "We need to split up to save more people." Zenitsu would shake his head no, but they do so anyway as they would head off. Taiyo then looks at the injured. "If you run from this direction towards the south, by the time you arrive, there should be a medical camp that is set up. I'm sorry I cannot guide you myself, but I will pray to the sun that you all arrive safely." Far away, as Tanjiro runs through cutting people down from the spiderwebs, he sees a strange person who is wearing a boar mask. Well, he still looks human to me. Once Tanjiro cuts him down, the strange kid would kick him and then run off yelling he will win the next battle. With Nezuko, we see her fight begin a little different. She was surrounded by samurai who were controlled by the strings. "Who did this to you all?" One would try to speak, but then his neck was snapped. She quickly remembered her training. Breath of Scorch, 3rd form, Roaring Flames. She swings her blade around, and the flames create a tornado, and they send wind in every direction. That would cut many of the trees down, as well as the threads that were holding the people. After this, Nezuko located the target, which was a woman with white hair. Nezuko wasted no time rushing at her. Breath of the Scorch, 5th form, Flame Barrage. Over and over, Nezuko landed cut after cut with grace, finally slicing the woman's body in half. And we can now go to Zenitsu, who is running around and will come face to face with spiders. He begins to run from them, screaming, "No, no, get away, I don't wanna." And then he was cut off in his sentence because he ran into a tree. As the spiders get closer and closer to the unconscious Zenitsu, lightning sparks and they were blown away. Zenitsu was now in his awakened state, and with this power, he demolished his opponent quickly, in a flash. But after finishing, he falls back to his regular state, not yet controlling this power. We finally then see Tanjiro, who is facing the leader, and even though these deadly threads were strong and his sword skills were great, Tanjiro had the advantage after slicing his arm. But after he did so, someone else had appeared. Tanjiro was shocked as a man stood with moon earrings. It must be him. Tanjiro gripped his blade, sort of shaking in fear, but he prepared himself. Suddenly though, someone used his shoulder to bounce off of and attack Kokushibu, and this was no one other than Inosuke. But Kokushibu was ready, and he was too fast, easily dodging every attack and cutting Inosuke across his chest. Tanjiro would then catch him, and then he looks back up at Kokushibu, who had killed the white-haired siblings without hesitation. "You both were very useless. And as for you," he turns his gaze to Tanjiro, and he notices the earrings. You must be that man's son. Well, let me repay you for the last time." Kokushibu runs at Tanjiro, who had his eyes closed, protecting Inosuke. Breath of the Moon, 1st form, Evening Palace. But as the attack goes to hit Tanjiro, it was blocked by no one other than Taiyo, who would be saying, "Breath of the Sun, 1st form, Waltz." Taiyo kicked his uncle away, guarding Tanjiro. How is he, Tanjiro? His friend looks up. Not so good. He's losing a lot of blood and fast. This will be when Taiyo throws off his cloak and he would tie it around Inosuke. This should help for now, but you should take him and meet up with the others. I'll catch up with you soon. Tanjiro runs off carrying Inosuke, but this is when Kokushibo appeared right in front of them. Not so fast. Quickly, Taiyo blocked the strike for Tanjiro, but he was also struck in his side, causing him to bleed. Well, now it seems I didn't teach you enough. Taiyo then gripped his blade. Tanjiro, run out of here. And I'm not here to talk with you. I have something to do. Breath of the Sun, 13th form. Taiyo then began using every form as he evaded the breath of the moon from his uncle. In an instant, he was landing cuts on his uncle over and over. Taiyo was in his element. You could say it was his prime. But even though he was so great, even great enough to become a Hashira at such a young age, there was always one thing that would be holding him back in life. And that was the thing that kept him from reaching the level of his masters. He could only train his young body so far. And on his next strike, as he was about to end the battle, every part in his body cramped up as it would pause, and then he would be slashed across his chest. Taiyo fell to the ground and closed his eyes, seeing as how much blood he was losing. But for those who actually know who Taiyo is and who've kept up with the story, well, Taiyo's story would end here. But Taiyo also used to be known as Naruto Uzumaki. And Naruto Uzumaki had a great power sealed inside of him. Taiyo wakes up in water, looking at the nine-tailed fox. Well, brat, looks like you finally arrived, and at the worst timing as usual. You're about to die. Taiyo stared at the orange fox. Are you the sun god? Kurama shouts, you fool, I am the nine-tailed fox. And, seeing as you're about to die, I'll help you out since you're not a part of that village. Kurama gives Taiyo some of his chakra, and then on the outside, as Kokushibo began to walk away, he felt something, as he had tears in his eyes. He felt regret, but in an instant, it sort of changed to fear, as he feels an overwhelming pressure. It was like something was right on his back, and that something wanted his blood. He turned around, seeing Taiyo, who arose, now having an orange aura resembling the sun. Let's finish this. Taiyo closed his eyes as even his pupils would disappear as they were pure white. Breath of the Sun, 14th form. There's no way. Could he have really created a 14th form? Nine-tailed blaze. Taiyo moves his blade so fast, making it seem as if he has 9 total blades. This attack strikes his opponent in 8 different spots, leaving very deep cuts in his body. The flames from this form also burn longer than the others, because of him borrowing the power from the Nine Tails. Kokushibo couldn't move or predict where each strike was coming from, and this led to Taiyo landing every hit. As they both stood standing, as Taiyo backed away, he noticed that it was becoming noon. They were fighting all night, so he put his blade back on his lower back. We'll finish this another time, uncle. Taiyo ran off and Kokushibo retreated, injured, wondering what that power was. How could the boy come back to life? I was sure I killed him. Even as Taiyo ran, he questioned himself. Did I really create a new form thanks to that fox? And how did that fox get inside me? Is that what this strange symbol is on my stomach? Could this be why they hated me so long ago? Taiyo would eventually arrive outside the forest where everyone was. Alright, is everyone here? Tanjiro would nod, and then Taiyo would say, Breath of the Sun, Hidden Technique, Sun's Grace. As the light spread all around, everyone was healed, as the flames of life touched every soul. But Taiyo frowned when seeing the body of a dead comrade. Taiyo would begin to cry as tears flooded his face. I would give my life to see this samurai alive. I'm a Hashira. I'm supposed to defeat the evil and save all, am I not? And I completed neither of those things today. This is when Inosuke punches him across his face. Stop saying dumb stuff like that. You saved my life, whoever you are. I don't know your name, but you're really cocky and strong, and you're pretty young. I remember fighting you in the forest. I thought you killed me, but you need to celebrate. Taiyo looked behind the older kid in a boar mask to see the smiling faces of many samurai who had survived because of him and his friends. He then smiled. Yeah, you're right. Let's start heading back. Taiyo stood up once again, and as the samurai would begin to turn back and go to the base of the organization, as they would report the mission after weeks of travel, Taiyo rested at the medical center. He had bandages placed over his ribs and arms. The Nine Tails only did enough to revive him and temporarily give him enough power to defeat Kokushibu. But even Taiyo didn't finish the job because he knew what was more important. But this isn't where I want to end it before the time skip. I'd rather end it here, far away in the snowy mountains. As a samurai bowed to a figure on a throne, the man stood up, and he saw people who had entered, who were wearing black and red cloaks.